You're watching the race. Now, the economic freedom fighters are demanding change. The party says conventional ideas just aren't producing results. But here's the thing. New data suggests EFF supporters aren't quite as radical as they seem, actually. These numbers will raise eyebrows. Let's get straight to them. On radical economic transformation support, this research takes only the ANC and EFF supporters. You look at the ANC. ANC supporters, 68%. Oppose radical economic transformation, whereas 28% supports radical transformation. Now, that in itself is interesting given the ANC's own conference resolutions on radical economic transformation. But it gets even more interesting when it comes to the EFF, where you have 22% supporting radical economic transformation and 76% opposed to radical economic transformation. Kandi, you reckon it's because EFF supporters believe that by supporting radical economic transformation, you'll essentially be supporting the ANC, therefore?
Absolutely. I think I would insist on that because I suspect, because of course it's an ANC policy, right? I think obviously there was a time the EFF itself would have been pushing for radicalism, you know, I mean, by their very name, the EFF wants...
Radical everything?
Exactly. But the sense here is that, you know, it got to be owned by people like, you know, the Guptas and Jacob Zuma, and therefore the ANC now have made it central to them. And so they would not have supported it. I would be very, very surprised if they would have supported RET, especially when it has come to me.
Is that your reading of it as well, Bill?
I think it's more complex in the sense that EFF voters are in favour of land invaders. They say they should be allowed to keep the land. They want policies to help the poor. They support workers who are striking who use violence. Those, you know, classical EFF policies that no doubt Malema would preach. But they're in favour of privatisation, they're in favour of an IMF bailout, they're against radical economic transformation, and they were willing to surrender both affirmative action and BEE if you could get more growth by doing so. So I think what you've got is a young, not terribly well-educated electorate. It's excited by the style and manner and rhetoric of the movement, but it's actually fairly confused. There you are, there's the BEE and EFF. Again, a majority of ANC voters also willing to get rid of those policies, but even more of the EFF. And I think this is typical of populist movements, that it is to some extent inchoate, it's confused, and that you get a mixture of all sorts of ideas thrown together, including some of the classic pro-poor policies, but a lot which clearly Mr. Malema would have nothing to do with.
Andy?
I would disagree there strongly. I think it's about the notions underneath these kinds of policies. We all know that most people think BEE, even the way we talk about BEE, we're ridiculous. We look at it as something in which it has been hijacked by the rich people, you know, the rich black people who have accorded everything to themselves. So none of us actually now want BEE because we think anytime we think about a black economic deal, it is going to certain people that we know of. It makes only a certain people rich. And so people don't actually believe in those things anymore. I think it is on that basis that people would say, we actually think we must relax it.
The question of Bill was, what? Relax BEE, isn't it?
Well, the way we put it was that there are people who say that if we didn't have those policies, you would possibly get more investment and thus more growth. Do you think that it's so important to maintain those policies that we should keep them anyway? Or do you think if it would get more growth, we should do without them? Mm-hmm. And I didn't use the word relax in the question, but that's the meaning, and that's what we came up with.
And I guess, and that's exactly for me my concern. It's certainly that if you say to people, well, if you actually relax or do away with these things, there's something better for you coming. And of course, people would say yes to that. They would say, well, actually, do away with them if we think about growth. Remember, also the story we've sold is that if you grow more, in the economy grows, then you will get a job, then you will get a better life. And therefore, BE is actually an impediment to that, and as Bill explains it. So these results are not surprising at all, given actually the way we discuss it. If we discuss it relatively differently and we ask them a different question and says, should we relax BE, it's the policy that will actually make sure that you can get companies, or you can get a share in a company that you work for. You can actually earn, the harder you work, the more you will earn in a certain company. The factory that you work for will actually earn you a return. People would answer very, very differently.
And of course, I mean, we're having this conversation at a time when every party contesting this election has already made up its mind about which policies to prioritize, and over the past couple of months they've been selling those issues.
Can I just make one final point, Vuyo? 30% of EFF voters say they've never been interested in politics. And another 19% say, I used to be interested in politics, but I'm not now. And a few more say don't know. So more than half are saying they're not very interested in politics.
Very interesting indeed. But
and
that's
everybody would say at lunch, I don't talk politics.
No, not talk. Interesting.
All right, that's a wrap for the race today. More data, more insight, and more analysis coming up in the build-up to the elections. Until then, remember, the race is still very much on.